You're listening to the Celtics Late Night Show, live at www.CelticsLateNightShow.com. Now, the hosts of tonight's show, Nick Gelso and B. Paul.
Come on, Celtics!
Good evening, Celtics fans, NBA fans, and more importantly, Nick Gelso fans. You're listening to the Celtics Late Night Show tonight on CLNSradio.com. I'm your host for tonight, B. Paul, alongside me, as always, the past 3 weeks, my good friend Nick Gelso. What's going on?
How are we doing this, Brandon? I mean, all of a sudden we're like motivated and back on the regular schedule. It feels good, man. It feels good. And it feels good that you agree with me on a lot of things now.
Yeah, we got to start putting an end to that, though.
I think that might end tonight as a guy that's going to be calling in may have differing opinions.
That is correct. Tonight we will be joined later on, about 20 past the hour, we'll be joined by former NBA referee, author of the book Personal Foul, former CLNS radio show host, and now contributor to www.refpicks.com. That is Tim Donaghy. He will be joining us tonight, and we have a lot to talk about. Things ranging from the Boston Celtics, their game on Sunday versus the OKC Thunder, their road ahead now in 6th place in the Eastern Conference, and climbing. So a lot to talk about tonight.
Real lot to talk about. I mean, between the Celtics and what's going on around the NBA, the Lakers making a good push. I think they're now tied for the 8th seed in the Western Conference. And then, of course, the tragedy that's going on down in Miami with all their recent successes and LeBron playing out of his mind. I'm sure Tim will have a lot to say about that. So a well-rounded show tonight. And, Brandon, if Celtics fans did not, or NBA fans, did not know that we had Tim Donaghy tonight, they have not texted CLNS fans to 22828. That's correct, Celtics fans. 22828. Text CLNS fans. You'll be signed up for our e-blast. It's free, and we don't spam you.
That is correct. And they'd also probably know the call-in number for tonight. As always, 347-215-7771. We will be taking calls throughout the show with Tim Donaghy on the lines. No topic is off limits, so give us a call and let us know what you're thinking.
He loves the topics that should be off limits. That's usually the way it works with our good friend Tim. Not to mention, Brandon, I don't know about you, but I'm over in the Celtics blog chat room, CelticsBlog.com. CelticsBlog.com. Click the chat button and get in on the conversation. I'm in here, and I'm all alone. I'm Nick Gelso, along with Brandon Paul. Again, the D-Wade of I don't even know abbreviated names. It's B. Paul. What's going on? That makes no sense.
Good try, though. A for effort.
I tried. Yeah, it was, on the fly.
Good job.
Anyway, the callers are lined up. If you're listening, give us a ring. Tim will be calling in any minute. You can call us at 347-215-7771. Make sure if you want to get on the air, you press 1, and that will put you in the queue. We've already gotten several callers who are ready to come on and are anxious to speak with Tim with some great questions. Donaghy will be calling in the next 2 minutes, Brandon. Well, I want to ask Tim Donaghy his opinion. He is now on the call lines with us, CLNSradio.com. Tim Donaghy, partner in refspick.com. Tim, tell us all about this new venture you have going on. It's so good to hear from you, man. It's been too long.
Yeah, I miss you guys. It's good to have me back on. Really appreciate it. It's refpicks.com. It's just a handicapping site that I'm involved in with two guys out of the Sarasota area, Blake and Brock Gratton, two guys that have a business called Explode Marketing. So, we're getting started. We're putting some good information out there on the internet and on the website, and it's just starting off, but it's going pretty well so far.
Well, we're going to talk in depth about refpicks.com. Either Blake or Brock are going to call in as well. Correct, Tim, in the second half of the show?
I'm not sure if one of them just had a new baby, so they're
nice.
helping each other out. So I'm not sure they're going to be able to call in, but maybe in a week or two we'll get them on. They're two good guys.
Sounds good, man. Obviously yesterday, a big loss for the Celtics. Brandon and I are sitting here and saying that we're not concerned. I'm sure you're going to have an opinion on yesterday's game. What went wrong yesterday for the Celtics?
I just think that they had no life in them for some reason. I'm not too sure. Paul Pierce definitely looks like he's hurt and maybe should take a few games off. And even KG, who's probably got the biggest heart in the NBA, just didn't seem like he had that effort, that he puts in and night out. And I'll tell you what, nobody was more disappointed than me. One of my plays yesterday on RefPicks.com was, the Boston Celtics thinking, 11.5, 12-point spread. The Celtic pride is definitely going to be able to cover that. And, I was highly disappointed there with 14 points in the fourth quarter that they couldn't even cover.
Yeah, it looked close for most of the game. And, Tim, normally when you're giving out these picks, I know I'm not a gambler, but we've obviously talked a lot about different NBA games and what's going on, and you've offered consultation really as a friend because we're bullshitting, but you rarely get them wrong, Tim. 80% of the time you pick them right, correct? You're still holding those great statistics?
Well, it's probably more towards realistically 70% correct. And, it's a situation where you're not going to win every game. You try to go out and do the best you can, but if you're consistently hitting between 60 and 70% correct, and guys are using this as a hobby, as a tool for entertainment, definitely not out there betting their mortgage money, but just, putting money on the table and having fun with it, they're going to have some extra spending money at the end of a month. So it's something that we do to, try to put some information out there, and guys just use it as a tool to, as a form of entertainment.
Tim, we were talking about the Celtics, and you mentioned Celtics pride. Obviously, without Rajon Rondo in the lineup for the Celtics, their chances of going far in the playoffs diminished, especially for the national people, the national media. Pretty much forgot about the Boston Celtics as a contending team. You, as a non-biased fan and someone who studies the game, how far do you think that this Celtics team, without Rondo, can realistically go in the playoffs?
Realistically, I don't believe they're going to go too far. I think they would be absolutely lucky to get out of the first round.
Really?
Yes. They just, they don't have those young legs. Rondo was key in being able to distribute the ball, to getting Garnett and Pierce easy shots. Yesterday, for example, I saw Garnett take shots that I've never seen him take before. I'm talking about fadeaway jump shots, 18 to 20-foot jump shots,
dribble jumpers, yeah. He was dribbling and then shooting a lot.
Places where he shouldn't be taking jump shots. It's just a step in front of the top of the key, and they're not shots that is going to benefit anybody on the Celtics team. And I think that they're going to miss him. Although they've been winning without him, I think come playoff time he's going to be a major loss for them.
Tim, we look at potential opponents for the Celtics in the playoffs, and one team. Two teams, the Miami Heat and Indiana Pacers, the Celtics have had success against this season. Their style of play being focused defensively. Maybe they may not have the most talent on offense, but it seems as though the way that they carry themselves on defense and just Celtics pride, like you mentioned, has really fared well for them against those two teams. What would make what would change your opinion, or what do you think would change in the playoffs that would really make a difference in the Celtics not being able to compete with these teams like they have in the regular season?
Well, I don't think that they're going to be able to put enough points up on the board to compete, with a team like the Miami Heat or even the Indiana Pacers, who we've seen have been putting some pretty good numbers up. The Celtics just don't have that, go-to guy other than Pierce that can score off the dribble that is going to enable them to have an option that they can go to, and I think that they're going to struggle to put points up on the board to where they can compete with those teams like Oklahoma City. You saw them on Sunday. Really, that game could have been a 25-point game. Very rarely do you see Oklahoma City shoot 4 for 16 from three-point land, and I think that game was a little bit closer than what it really could have been.
See, I think it could have been. I think it could have been even closer than it was. The Celtics missed some easy shots in that game. Overall, I thought they competed well with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they're probably the second best team in the NBA. So I do have to probably tend to disagree with you as far as how far the Celtics can go. I don't think they're odds-on favorites, but at this point in time, using the philosophy and the system that they're using right now, you mentioned the Celtics not having a go-to guy, and I almost think I will look at that as a positive because we've seen the Celtics win games lately in the clutch, and it's because the other team doesn't know where the ball's going. It used to always be Paul Pierce, but look at lately. The Celtics have gone to Jason Terry, got the big three against Atlanta. Jason Terry hit that big three. And then you have Jeff Green against Indiana, and then you have Paul Pierce who can always hit the big shot. I think that's more of a positive for the Boston Celtics than looking at it as a negative.
Well, I'll tell you what I didn't understand. I watched the game last week on TNT against the Philadelphia 76ers, and if you go back and look at a tape of that game, you'll see that Boston got the ball out of the basket very quickly and ran the ball, pushed the ball constantly. And for some reason, they didn't do that against Oklahoma City, even when they got down. And I understand they don't want to get into a running match with Oklahoma City because they get blown out of the gym. But when they got down, I just find it very strange that they didn't go to that, even off a made basket, off a rebound, just to push that ball up the floor as quickly as possible. And I think that they were very successful in a team, against a team like the Philadelphia 76ers. And I realize Philadelphia and Oklahoma City are two different teams, but I think if they go to that more often, especially when they're down, they have a better chance of coming back.
I agree. I do agree with that. I do think the Celtics, despite them being an older team, they can still run the ball when they have the right unit in the lineup. Usually that does include having Avery Bradley, Courtney Lee, Jason Terry, and or Jeff Green, a mixture of those in the lineup. That's when they can run the ball. And they have been successful with that in the past, but you're right, against a team like Oklahoma City, they certainly don't want to be getting into a running match in a shootout with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And not to turn this into a complete Celtics show, because I know you do want to talk about more, but it seems like right now you're pretty down on the Celtics franchise, not giving them a shot. What do you think for the future of the franchise, Danny Ainge and the rest of the management needs to do to turn this franchise back around, in your opinion? I still think they're right there. They're not where they were a couple years ago, but I still think they're right there, top 5, top 8 in the league. But in your eyes, what do you think needs to be done?
Usually you come across as making some good comments from. I'm really going to have to disagree with you there, because I'll tell you what they need to do. Danny Ainge had a great blueprint when he, dismantled that team several years back and put together a championship team. And I think if he waits much longer, that's going to pass him by. He's got an opportunity, that this last trading deadline, I think he should have put in place where he should have traded some of those players like Pierce and maybe even Garnett to some of those teams that are one player away from competing for a championship. And I think that he could have started the rebuilding process, and he could have put Garnett in a good position, to maybe get a championship. It can maybe compete against a team like the Miami Heat. You put a guy like Kevin Garnett on a team like the Indiana Pacers or the Chicago Bulls, and it's a whole different story.
And not to keep disagreeing with you, Tim, but really, you mentioned the trade deadline move, and realistically, the names on the table were Josh Smith and Caron Butler, guys like that. Do you really think it would be worth trading a guy like Kevin Garnett to get one of those guys? Do you really think a guy like Josh Smith could be the future of the Boston Celtics?
No, I don't. But I think when you talk about, behind the scenes, you can acquire maybe a mid-round, first-round pick and throw somebody else in that deal that maybe Boston has a contract tied up with it that they need to get rid of to free up some cap space. I think there's some very creative ways that you can do to move some of these players around, especially in the NBA. And when you talk about, a guy like Kevin Garnett coming to a team, he does a lot. He doesn't only do it on the floor, but he does it off the floor and motivating everybody else. I just think he would be a huge, huge asset, like I said, for somebody like the Chicago Bulls.
Hoops fans, you're listening to the Celtics Late Night Show, early edition on CLNSradio.com and SB Nation's CelticsBlog.com. Simulcast, we're in the chat room over there. We're live with former NBA official and good friend of ours, Tim Donaghy. Tim, one more question, then we're going to open the call lines because they're flooded. Brandon, you want to give that call-in number one more time?
Yes, sir. 347-215-7771. We have Fred in Boston, Mad Dog in Maine. We have our good friend Chris Hogan. We also have Ryan in Southern California, all lined up in the queue, ready to go. So get your calls in, 347-215-7771.
Make sure you press 1 if you want to get on the air. Tim, I read recently that you attended your first NBA game since your life unraveled and you wrapped it all back together. You're back on your feet. How was it getting back in an NBA arena?
I'll tell you what, it was definitely a little bit nervousness for me. I attended a game with Danny B. We sat courtside at the Knicks game.
At MSG, right? At Madison Square Garden.
Madison Square Garden. I was definitely nervous. Mark Cuban came up and gave me a big hug and wished me well. So that kind of.
I think.
Ooh, we lost him.
He just dropped. That's interesting.
I want to hear the rest of that.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear the rest of that because Mark Cuban, I believe, is one of those guys that.
Mark's his friend.
Really? I thought from what I read, Cuban was one of the guys. No, Mark. Yeah, you're right. Mark Cuban is one of the guys that. Mark Cuban hates the refs anyway, so he's going to side with Tim.
Yeah, he sides with Tim. I mean, Mark's a sensible guy. He's like the Scotsman.
All right, we have Tim Donaghy back on the line.
All right,
you were talking about you're sitting courtside and meeting up with Mark Cuban.
Yeah, please. I'm dying to hear this.
Yeah, definitely I was nervous, and he came over and gave me a big hug, wished me well, asked me how my family was doing. So that definitely was something that, calmed me down. And he's just a great guy that I continue to have a relationship with. So, I'm looking forward to possibly in the future attending the Boston Celtics game with you two guys.
Oh man, I'll tell you what, Tim. I go up to Boston almost every other weekend in the spring. So it's now spring. We're definitely going to do that, my friend. We got to get to the Garden. We got to get you in there. Without a doubt.
Yeah, I think it would definitely be interesting. Definitely Boston, especially come playoff time, has one of the most passionate set of fans that are out there. So definitely would be interesting.
We got to get you on the Jumbotron, man. Now let me ask you something, Tim. Did any players speak to you, react to you, any of the other referees that were on that night? I mean, this is a very interesting story.
It was a situation where I kind of wanted to stay a little bit low-keyed. It wasn't a situation where I was out there trying to look for a lot of attention. Danny was a big fan in regard to the New York Knicks. He grew up in that area, so it was just definitely something that he wanted to do. So, I was just going along with him, and it was just an enjoyable night.
Did you get any reaction, Tim, from fans, any sort of negative reactions, or did you hear any comments or anything like that?
No, actually, there was some fans that definitely recognized me sitting courtside, and they were very cordial and, just basically asked a lot of questions. And, we had some security guards that were sitting right there that were definitely keeping an eye on everything that was going on. So, it just worked out really well. It was a lot better than I had anticipated.
I must say that you are pretty revered in the Boston area. Boston fans are always pretty tough on the referees. So mention Tim Donaghy's name, and people love you, Tim. I mean, and not to mention your experiences in the NBA, but also your knowledge, your ability to be able to, look at who the refereeing assignments are, what the matchups are, know where the game is going. Your consultation is incredible, and it could be found at refspicks.com. That's Tim Donaghy's new site. Brandon, what do you say? Should we open the call lines, get Tim Donaghy all riled up?
Let's do it.
Yeah, man, we know he loves it.
All right.
Munger's out there somewhere.
He actually isn't. We haven't.
You know Munger's story, Tim, correct? He's had some hard times recently.
I know. I think I know. I'm not familiar with all of it, but
I'll text
I know
you.
it's real important to him. So.
Yeah, I'll text you very shortly about that. But he is not on tonight, and I know that it's breaking his heart to not be able to speak with you, but I'll explain why after. Who is on the line, though, Brandon? We have Fred from Boston. Shall we go to him?
You got it, Fred in Boston. You're on the Celtics Late Night Show with Nick Gelso, Tim Donaghy, and myself, B. Paul. What's going on?
I'm doing good, just in Boston for the first time in my life. So just having a good time.
Good stuff. So what are you, on spring break?
Yeah.
Are you behaving?
I had courtside seats for the Friday night's game against the Hawks. But
man, you saw a thriller.
My flight got canceled, and I had to miss it.
Oh.
But then I just toured the TD Garden today, and I took a kiss on the floor like KG, so that was great.
Well, let me tell you, Tim Donaghy's been all through TD Garden. He knows all about it. He's obviously refereed several games there. And, Tim, in the old Garden, too, correct? Did you ever get a game in the old Garden?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, that was certainly something that had a lot of historic history to it, and, I'll never forget that, being in that place. Definitely something to remember.
Fred, what do you have for Tim tonight? What's on your mind?
It's been like this for some years. Do you think, the league is still rigged? And, did they help LeBron get a ring last year?
I love that question.
Well, I don't think that the league is rigged, so to speak. I think that's definitely an overstatement. I think what the league does is it, definitely gives star treatment to star players, and LeBron is certainly one of those guys that gets special treatment. So I definitely don't think the league is rigged. I think it's just a situation where certain players and certain teams are treated differently and get the benefit of the calls from the referees.
Okay.
Anything else for Tim Donaghy or any of us tonight, Fred?
I watched the 60-minute special about you. I mean, it was a bad situation, but as long as you're still doing good, breathing, I'm glad to see that you're still out functioning. So,
Fred, I really appreciate that. And while I have you on the line, I have one question for you. Why would you be in Boston for spring break instead of somewhere like Fort Lauderdale, Florida?
That's a good question.
I'm a huge Paul Pierce and Celtics fan, so I saved my money up to come out here, and just because I want to move out here, I want to be a sports broadcaster, and I graduate from college next year, so I'm hoping to internship somewhere and hopefully start my career and family out here.
I'll tell you what, Fred, you get with Nick and B. Paul and you set something up, maybe me and you could host a show together one night on there just to get you started and break in, because they're two guys that can help you with that path to get where you want to go.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Tim,
I would
nice.
love that.
Absolutely. You know what? Hit our mailbag up, and maybe we could arrange that. Special guest host with Mr. Tim Donaghy, partner in refspicks.com, Tim? Is it plural?
Yeah, refspicks.com. So, hit those guys, and we'll get something going for you. All right, Fred?
All right, I plan to come back in Boston during playoff time, and hopefully I actually continue with my floor seats and not the weather goes bad again.
Well, hopefully we'll catch up with you then, Fred. Thanks for the call, man. Keep the faith. Keep listening. Keep following Tim Donaghy. He's one of the best in the business as far as sports talk, in particular the NBA goes, man. This guy's a wealth of knowledge. Thanks to Fred in Boston. Let's keep going right down the wire. We got Mike Mad Dog Mitchell from Farmington. What's up, Mad Dog?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
What do you have for Tim Donaghy?
Hey, I just wanted to throw something out there. I saw it on the news wire earlier. I'm so glad that the Celtics brought Shelvick Randolph back on a second 10-day contract. I am so glad. And also, Tim, you have this is one of my questions for you. You have refereed in, as Fred was saying, the second the second best, I should say, arena in basketball, in my opinion. Of course, the first is the great, I'm not sure if you've ever been there, Tim, but the great Cameron Indoor Stadium. But what do you think that the most passionate atmosphere was? Reffing all your years in the NBA or that you've ever been to?
I think that's a great question. I think when you have to look at that question, you have to go to cities like Sacramento and Portland, where they really don't have any other professional sporting teams there, and that's what makes them such a passionate city about their team. So, when you get at the end of a game and, it's a situation where they're trying to root their home team on, the fans are very vocal and passionate, and they can be very hard on the referees, and at times they can influence calls that referees make. So when I look back, I look at cities like Sacramento and Portland that definitely have some fans that can change how an official referees a game.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Obviously, those two cities, not so much Sacramento anymore, but I remember watching as a young fan and remembering that. Just a quick couple others, because I know that you guys have a lot of callers on the line, and thank you, Tim, for coming on and taking our calls. I know that I do, and other fans appreciate it. I want your opinion on something that I have gone over several times, a game which I've had nightmares about for the last 3 years, and I want to ask your opinion about it real quickly.
I know where you're going.
As it's on my mind. Game 7, 2010 finals, Celtics and Lakers in LA. I would like your opinion on that game, and just a third question, not so about the NBA, but it relates to basketball. I just want you to briefly tell me if Coach K is going to get his 5th championship this year. But anyway, guys, peace out, and Danny and Doc, please put Shelvick Randolph in the game. Lee Green.
All right.
Mad Dog.
Thank you. Thank you for the call, Mad Dog.
Thanks, Mad Dog. There's two good questions there.
Yeah, definitely. But anytime you're playing in a Game 7 in LA and you're facing the Lakers, you're just going to have to be that much better than them, above and beyond, to win a game like that. It's just going to be very, very difficult, because you're basically playing 5-on-8, and when I mean 5-on-8, I mean 5 Lakers and 3 referees. So that's just definitely the situation when it comes to that. I mean, if you talk about that game, I mean, you can go back and see how the Portland Trailblazers got screwed several times when they faced LA in a Game 7. So it's just you got to be above and beyond to the point where you're just destined to win.
And Tim, I can remember you were on our pregame show back in 2010 for Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and you predicted that loss. You did. You said there's no way, and we all kind of wanted to kill you.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, it's a situation where, like I said, you're just going to have to be above and beyond. You're fighting an uphill battle, and at that point, you look at the Boston Celtics, and their starting 5 was as good as anybody's, and unfortunately, like I said, you just have to. Everyone's got to be burning on all cylinders, and you have to have, as a team, the best game of your career in order to overcome those battles.
And why do you think that is, Tim? Just because it's in L.A.? I mean, the fans, you mentioned passionate fans, and I would say Boston fans would be harder on the refs.
L.A. does not have passionate fans. I mean, it's just like refereeing, a high school game. They're not vocal. They're not screaming at you. It's just the mystique of, the Lakers and making sure you don't miss a call against the Lakers and what it means to the league. And it's just the knowledge of, as a referee, what you're out there doing and how you don't want to screw something up that would cost the Lakers something like a championship. So your focus really is making sure you don't miss a call, for them rather than hurting the other team.
While we're on the Lakers, Tim, how shocked are you at this debacle that's gone on out in L.A. this season?
I tell you what, I couldn't be more disappointed in Dwight Howard, because I think, the talent that he has, he's not utilizing it, and he's really the reason why they're floundering a little bit, and he can turn that button on quickly, as we've seen him do the last couple games. So if he does, in fact, come out to play night in and night out, the Lakers, of course, with somebody like Kobe Bryant, can do some damage, and I wouldn't want to be facing them in the first round of the playoffs. So it's all a matter of, I think, what Dwight decides to do.
Tim, and I've been saying this recently, with the Lakers now inching up towards the playoffs, I think they're tied for the 8th seed. In your opinion, are all bets off in the second season? Can LA, fight through the Western Conference and possibly get to the Western Conference Finals or the NBA Finals? I mean, it is the second season. We've seen Kobe at his advanced years in the NBA just continue to light it up. I mean, that game against Toronto the other night was just what he did in the last minute was incredible. What are your thoughts on LA for a playoff run?
I mean, I think they definitely can get into the playoffs. I said a month ago when they were several games out, when they had to win, I think it was 2 out of every 3 games. I thought they were going to get into the playoffs. I still think they're going to get there. I think they can do some damage and, possibly win. But I don't see them getting to the NBA Finals. I don't see them, getting to the conference finals. I just think Oklahoma City and even the San Antonio Spurs are just too deep and too strong and too well coached, to not get there this year. So I really believe that Oklahoma City is going to get there versus Miami, and unfortunately, I don't see the Celtics getting there. I know it's going to be very disappointing to you two guys, but I don't think they're going to be there in the finals this year.
Yeah, they're not. Here's the thing. I'm not saying they're odds-on favorite, and I've repeatedly said this throughout the season. My whole thing is there's many people who aren't even putting them in the conversation. And with guys such as Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and then the supporting players that have really found a role, Jeff Green, Jason Terry, Avery Bradley defensively, in my opinion, they can. I'm not saying they will, but they can beat any team, any night.
Come on, people. In all realistic, thoughts that you have, when you put your head on the pillow at night, do you really think that the Celtics can play in the conference finals?
I certainly think they can play in the. I think they can beat in a 7-game series. I certainly think they can beat the Knicks. They can beat the Pacers. They can beat the Nets. They have the experience. They have the defense, and they have the pride in the heart to beat any team, especially the way they've been playing lately.
No comment from Tim. You got the man speechless for the first time in his life. I don't think they have a shot. I think.
Come on,
I think they could fight to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Exactly.
I think they could beat everybody in the Eastern Conference except Miami. I think Indiana would give them a hard time. I don't think the Knicks have a shot in hell against them, to be honest with you. Brooklyn would be a tough series, but I think the Celtics can pull it out. And I think actually climbing up the standings. If you asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd say, let's just get the 8th seed and face Miami and get it over with. But now we're at a point where the Celtics are climbing the standings. If they can secure home court, and they're playing so damn well at home, anything could happen. But can they beat Miami? Barring a major meltdown from LeBron, and nothing's impossible with that guy.
They've proven they can beat Miami, though. I'm not saying they're favorites in a series against Miami, but they can. They can beat We have seen it. We saw it last season when nobody thought they'd give Miami a run. They took them to 7 games, and outside of a screw job officiating, I think they probably could have. And without Avery Bradley, if they had Avery Bradley, I think they could have realistically won that series. It came down to 1 game and 1 quarter.
Yeah, but you could say the same exact thing. They didn't have Chris Bosh. I mean, you could say
they did. They had Chris Bosh.
Yeah, in the last 2 games. You could say the exact, and they won the last 2 games. You could say the exact same thing. Would Boston have even made the Eastern Conference Finals had Derrick Rose not been injured? So there's a lot of tangibles that are up for discussion. But before we go back to the call lines, Tim, what are your thoughts on the Miami Heat? The national coverage they get, the way they behave with that Harlem Shake, and also if they are playing 8-on-1 every night of the week.
I watched the game, I believe it was last week, and we talked about it when they played the Orlando Magic. I mean, the end of that game was, officiating-wise, was an absolute disgrace. I mean, LeBron got away with the travel. There was an offensive foul called in favor of Miami where Battier came up and under the defender after his upward shooting motion began, which really would have put the game out of reach. It would have, instead of giving Orlando 2 points, they take 2 points away, and then LeBron goes down and makes that winning basket. So, I think Miami's got a solid team. They definitely are going to get the benefit of the calls down the end here, especially with this win streak going. It benefits the league. You see the NHL flourishing with all the talk about the Chicago Blackhawks. So it does the league good. The last thing they want to have happen is somebody loses to the Orlando Magic like the Miami Heat and ruin that streak. So, the Miami are definitely going to be in a position to make a run at a back-to-back championship. There's no question about it. And I think teams are going to be, very difficult to be able to be in a position to beat them.
let's just ask you right out, do they get on your nerves? I mean, all the antics, the Harlem Shake, the showboating. A couple of years ago, LeBron used to take pictures of his teammates in the opening. I mean, these guys, they're playing out of their mind basketball, and they sure as hell won't let us forget it because they're all over everything. And maybe that's the media's fault. Maybe it's the immaturity of some of the players. Like that Harlem Shake, it didn't bother Brandon at all. But, Tim, you know my personality. It's still annoying me.
Yeah, but it's a position. Let's say Boston had won 19 games in a row, and they did the Harlem Shake. It'd be funny, it'd be cool, and you guys would be all over it. But
no, it's not true. Tim, that's not true.
It's not your team. It's not your team. There, it's a team that annoys you. So obviously, it's a situation where if that's your team, and you're going to love it, and if it's not your team, you're going to hate it.
Maybe, but you were there. You were there in the day. You shared a basketball court with Mr. Michael Jordan in the midst of his greatest runs, which are the best of our generation. Let's face it. Did he ever behave in such a manner?
No, he didn't. I mean, he was a guy that had definitely class and dignity. But it's a different time. It's a hip hop culture time, and it's something that the Miami Heat are a little bit cocky and have some swagger to them. And, to be honest with you, I don't like it, but it works for them, and they're winning. So, you got to go with what's best for you.
All right, we're live, Celtics Late Night Show, early edition. We have our good friend Tim Donaghy, former NBA official, and now a contributor and partner at RepsPicks.com. Please check that site out. It's amazing. Tim picks 70% of the time. His consultation on NBA games is second to none. Also, just information on basketball in itself. Great guy to talk to. Pick his brain tonight. Give us a ring, 347-215-7771. Let's go right back to the call lines. We're going to hit up Ryan in Southern California. Ryan, what's on your mind? What would you like to discuss with Mr. Donaghy?
Well, before I get to Tim, I take issue a little bit with the passionate fan base of the Lakers a little bit. I mean, I'm not gonna disagree that when you're actually there in the atmosphere, it's a little Hollywood, a little bougie. But as far as the passionate fan base, there are us out here that are passionate. I mean, it's SoCal. We're a little bit laid back here, but it's definitely not the East Coast. It's not in your face, definitely. But I have one question for you, Tim, and I really think this is really cool of you to come on and talk with fans because a lot of people wouldn't do that. And but anyway, my question is, do you kind of find yourself being the Jose Canseco of the NBA refs world, as far as maybe a pariah, or do you still have a lot of friends within the organization of the NBA?
Right now, I mean, I do talk to some people that are still involved with the NBA. Obviously, we discussed the Mark Cuban situation earlier, but as far as officials go, it's very difficult for them to still be friends with me because they work for the NBA. I'm sure they're under, an order not to discuss anything with me in regard to what's going on or memos that are coming out. It's a situation where, I'm not proud of what I was involved in and what I did. I certainly made mistakes. I'm not too sure that Jose Canseco realizes, what he did was wrong and what he could do now to possibly go into high schools and discuss steroids with people. But I definitely think that, I realized what I did was wrong, and I share that openly with people. And although I'm still involved in, quote, the gambling business right now, I let people know that, this is a form of entertainment, and if you can't, utilize that this way, and if this is something where, you're trying to gamble your mortgage money or your food money away, definitely don't do it. So I think there's a way to go about the mistakes that you made, and I'm not too sure that he went about it the right way.
Good answer.
That's great, yeah. And one last thing for me as I get out of here is going back to your comments, Tim, on the Lakers and not really having a shot at going deep into the playoffs. I run a podcast out here in SoCal myself, and a lot of Lakers fans, I got to talk them down. They get really excited about 2 games over 500 and how the Lakers are playing. And I have to kind of talk them down a little bit and say, it took really career games for Kobe and Dwight. You know, Kobe has 40-plus points and 12 assists in each of those games against the Pelicans and the Raptors. And I have to kind of talk him down a little bit and say, easy. Those aren't the dominant teams in the NBA he's beating there. So we got to show it against bigger teams. You agree?
No doubt about it. I mean, you know, a couple weeks back, Oklahoma City really put a whooping on the Lakers on their home court. So, you know, it's definitely a situation where at this point I think they're going to take a win as a win, and it's a step up, and they're hoping that when they do get to the point where they're playing those elite teams, that they can build off these lesser, quote, wins that they're getting right now. So I think right now the Lakers are just hoping that they get into the playoffs, and I think they will. And from there, you know, hopefully Dwight Howard will come to play, and that's the key, because you know Kobe's going to bring it every single night.
Hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate you answering the questions candidly for all of us fans, and good luck, guys. Thanks.
Thanks for the call,
Ryan. Ryan, I didn't know that you were a podcaster. You should have told us that, man. So, shoot me an email with your link.
Definitely, I will.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. Thanks, Ryan. That's Ryan in Southern California, a Lakers fan calling into the Celtics Late Night Show. You can always count on Donaghy bringing all NBA fans to the call lines. They have absolutely exploded this evening. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to all callers because we're a 60-minute broadcast tonight, but we are going to hammer through the last three. And we're going to bring Tim on again in a couple weeks, right, Tim?
Absolutely, pal. You know I'm available anytime you need me.
Well, next we're going to go to Chris Hogan, and right after that, someone must have been listening to this show because Mike, the Scotsman Munger, is now on hold waiting to talk to you as well. So we'll bring on Hogan, and then we'll wrap the conversation with the Scotsman. You get one more check-in as to what you're up to, Tim, and where everybody can find you, and then we'll meet up with you again in a couple weeks. So we'll bring Chris Hogan live now. Chris Hogan, you are on the CLNS studio with Tim Donaghy, B. Paul, and Nick Gelso.
Tim, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing terrific. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, Tim, two quick questions. I know this first one is going to have, it has a lot of meaning to your career, obviously. I know, I followed your career, obviously, as an NBA fan over the last 15 years or so, since I followed it. You were involved with the Pistons, Pacers ball in 2004, and then obviously with Rasheed Wallace in 2003 with the slurs. And just tell us, the fans and stuff, were those two of your most difficult times as an NBA official? And what just tell us a little bit about how you got through those tough experiences throughout your career.
Definitely the brawl at the Palace of Auburn Hills that night was something that was extremely difficult, because as a referee you take pride in controlling a game and avoiding fights and avoiding a lot of things that look bad on national TV, and certainly that was something that looked bad on TV and was a huge black eye for the league. But we were fortunate that the league office supported us and basically came up and said that there was nothing that the referees could have done to avoid that. So it was something that it was tough to be a part of, but there's some things that you can't control, and I just chalk that up to being one of them. And in regard to the problem with Rasheed Wallace, I think that was an ongoing situation between him and myself that could have been avoided if maybe we both handled it a little differently. I think he was at fault a little bit, and I know I certainly was at fault a little bit for what took place. And I think
how were you at fault?
I think that I could have handled it a little bit differently, Nick. I think that maybe I could have just tried to walk away and not gave a cocky answer back to him out in the parking lot that really made him explode.
Yeah.
And we've discussed that, Rasheed and myself.
I was just going to say, I know you've had contact with him, correct?
Yes, I've had contact with him, and to be honest with you, he is really a terrific guy off the floor. I think his emotions just get the best of him on the floor. But I was shocked at how nice and professional he was in some of the conversations that we had. So, I got to give him a lot of credit. He is truly a good guy.
Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff, Tim. That was a very good answer, and, I appreciate the honesty. Obviously, it's a hard thing to talk about. Final question for me, obviously. You look at David Stern, leaving after the 2013-2014 season. Adam Silver, who I think is going to be, he's done a pretty good job, I thought, as a a deputy commissioner. What do you think? Two things he quickly needs to work on, obviously for that summer and going on. Obviously, is it something with the draft maybe, or maybe the scheduling? What do you think? Two things that they need to look at going forward in the 2014-2015 that the NBA could shape the NBA for a couple of years after that.
I don't want to give you two, but I'll give you one. I think that they have to get rid of this star treatment that still exists in the NBA today. I think for teams to be confident and fans to be confident that the NBA is basically something that is fair for everybody, you just have to, call the fouls based on what you see on the floor and not referee the jerseys and the names on the back of the jerseys. I think that they basically have to just officiate the calls and the violations, how they take place on the floor, and get rid of treating different players, different than the 12th man on the floor.
Yeah, great
answer.
Thanks, Tim, for taking my call. I really appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Chris Hogan.
All right,
Chris
guys,
Hogan. Yeah, good man, Chris Hogan. Tim, I want to expand on that a little bit. Do you think that Stern is going to be have a heavy hand in consultation, at least, with Adam Silver after he, quote-unquote, retires?
No doubt about it. I think he's going to be right there because I think Adam Silver's success is going to go back and define, David Stern's legacy to a certain extent. So he's going to definitely be hands-on. He's going to want Adam Silver to succeed, and I think he's going to be right there helping him every step of the way because obviously, over the course of the last 25 years, David Stern has been very successful. So he's going to want that to continue and flourish for the NBA.
Why Adam Silver? I mean, how long has he been grooming him? I mean,
why not Nick? Why not
me? Yeah, why not? Tim, let me ask you this.
Hell, why not me? I was
going there. I was going
there. Why not me? Why not Mike Munger? Who would do a great job is Mike Munger.
Let's bring him on to talk about what he would do, and it's going to be probably bizarre. And though we're a family-friendly radio station here, we don't want to hear him dropping F-bombs and stuff, but we'll let him rant tonight. He's got his good friend Tim Donaghy on the line. These two guys, for those that don't know, used to host a show together on this network. Great show. You can find a lot of the clips on YouTube, and they're also available on iTunes. Some of the greatest times I had producing shows was listening to these two guys go at it, and also listening to Scotty kind of submerge his ego a bit and be a bit more humble about the referees when on the line with Tim Donaghy. I hope he doesn't do that tonight. Scotty, you're live.
Yeah, no, there's no chance. These refs still suck. I can't believe it. The funny thing is, I still defend Tim to this day about why the NBA fears him and how David Stern craps his pants at the mere name of the immortal Tim Donaghy because the officiating has gotten so much worse ever since he came out and basically admitted what was going on. But good to talk to you again, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing terrific, pal. I miss you, and I hope everything's going well with the family. I know how important those kids are to you, so definitely we have to catch up soon.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Everything's going real well. Everybody's taking good care of us, especially all Nick and all the guys here at CLNS, but everything's going good. But I heard you, say probably the one thing that I'll agree with you with on this whole thing, like the whole star treatment. But kind of playing off of that, and I'll ask you a serious question for once. When you look at a guy like our own Avery Bradley, and if this has already been brought up, I apologize.
It hasn't. I would like to get his take on Bradley, so go there.
But you look at a guy like Avery Bradley, kind of like how Tony Allen was before him. These guys are lockdown defenders, and they're the best of the best. I went on record saying I think Avery Bradley's the best individual defensive player in the NBA. You look at a guy like that who's known for his defense, who is getting the reputation as an all-NBA caliber defensive player, and he absolutely shut down Russell Westbrook yesterday. He's Dwayne Wade's kryptonite. There isn't a single player that's really going to get the best of Avery Bradley to the point where they can say, I dominated this guy on the offensive end of the floor. Is the NBA going to kind of put the clamps on Avery Bradley as far as being a defensive stopper? Do you think that they want to allow that to continue a little bit just to prove that, we don't mind if we have a good defensive player, star players are still going to get theirs anyway, but if they have that one guy, it kind of makes for good individual matchups?
Well, I'll tell you what, and we've talked about this before. You look at a guy that plays good defense in the NBA, and what the NBA does, especially come playoff time, is they'll put tapes up of defensive plays that this guy's doing, and they'll show holding or impeding, and they'll tell the referees, this wasn't called, we want you to call it. So definitely they, come playoff time, they'll put a stop to that because they want points up on the board. They want to flow to a game. They want, the fans to be entertained, and if you're having games that are 79 to 85, that's not good for the league. They want those games up in the 90s, up in the 100s. So those defensive players are going to have a very, very hard time in, stopping a star player because they're basically just not going to allow it. The rules are not set up for a guy like that to succeed in the NBA.
All right. I was in a discussion with somebody, it might have been these guys yesterday, I forget, it's all jumbled into one, but you look at when Magic and Bird and all those guys in the 80s played, the game was much more physical back then. You had good defensive players, but they were still scoring, in the 120s and 130s, and you had games where just, guys would score. And obviously the league says they want to have a more aesthetically pleasing game. They want the offense. They want the run and gun. They want everybody to sit there and be, wowed by offense. But wouldn't you agree that it's not the way the game is played, it's the fact that, the way kids are being taught to play? I mean, don't you think that has something to do with it? And don't you think the NBA should take steps in preventing, players being able to come into the league with less fundamental talent as opposed to, guys with the athleticism and the upside? I mean, people are raving about somebody like DeAndre Jordan, and everybody in Boston said, we can get this guy for Garnett, and a couple of we trade Garnett for DeAndre Jordan, a couple other pieces. People were raving about this guy, but realistically, he's an awful basketball player. He's just a 7-footer with some bulk to him,
Scotty,
and he can jump out the gym.
Scotty,
hold on, let me answer that, Nick, real quick.
Go ahead.
Mike, if you go back and you look at tapes from the 80s of the championship games or even playoff games, you go back, you look at defensive players, and defensive players have their hands down in a defensive position. Now, defensive players are always leading with their hands and checking and stopping. You go back and look at films when Magic and Bird played, you don't see defensive players playing with their hands and impeding and stopping the flow of the game. And I think that, Pat Riley brought that physical type play in when he started coaching the Knicks, and that's what evolved this whole system of physical play, and it really changed the rules in the NBA because the league cracked down to try and get that out of the game. But no matter how much they do, it still creeps back in, and it's just a much more physical game now than it was before.
Tim, I know you got a conference call set up now. You're wheeling and dealing, man, a very busy man. Everybody needs to check you out where, Tim Donaghy?
Refpicks.com, and I would appreciate that, and I would really enjoy getting back on the line with Mr. Mike Munger sometime soon, and maybe we'll bring that new guy in, Fred, that wants to get involved in that. And,
I love the idea.
We'll have a nice chat 1 hour after Celtics game, and get Mike Munger's thoughts back on the air.
Tim, we're going to get you on one of our post-game shows on a nationally televised game very soon. I'm going to look at the schedule and get to you so that way we could schedule that. I'm so happy you're doing well. I'm so happy you're back in NBA arenas, and I'm so happy you joined us tonight. Apologies to everybody on the call lines we couldn't get to, and thank you very much to Tim Donaghy. Everybody we didn't get to, call us back in a couple of weeks. Tim will be back on the line. He ain't going anywhere. We keep in touch. Tim, thanks so much, man. And there he goes. Tim Donaghy, former NBA official. We got Scotty on the line with us still. B. Paul, why don't we wrap up with the Scotsman? Scotty, man, you about nearly a year you hosted a show with that guy, and he hasn't changed a bit, has he?
No, he still seems like, a pompous ass, and that's okay. That's Tim. Tim's a great guy. It was always a pleasure talking to him, like on and off the air. Obviously he gets the bad reputation because of what the NBA made him out to be, but it's just funny how his credibility continues to soar through the roof when you watch the fact that the NBA officiating hasn't gotten any better. And they're still the same guys that Tim mentioned, a long time ago. They're still the same guys being questioned as far as their agendas against certain players and certain teams in the league. So it's just, Tim's a great guy. Good to, to be able to talk to him again. And that'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun to get on the air with him for, a reunion show.
Of sorts. Yeah, if you haven't checked out Tim's site, Scotty, you got to do it. He's now in the business with us, a website owner, refspicks.com, well put together site. He's working with our boys Danny B and Paul Bovey. They're like the triumvirate of sports books. So yeah, Tim's back on the scene. We'll be hearing a lot from him at CLNS Radio and Simulcast over at Celtics Blog. Brandon and Scotty, we got to wrap this show up. Let's look at the road ahead very, very quick. Because coming up right at 10 o'clock, at 9 o'clock, so in 50 minutes, is Jay King and Ty Ray with Celtics Town King of the Court podcast. They're going to have all the Celtics analysis for you. Make sure to call in during the 9 o'clock hour at 347-215-7771. 347-215-7771. Scotty and B. Paul, this week we have the Bobcats, we have the Raptors, and we have the Bobcats again. Two at least, very easy wins. One Raptors team that's gotten better, but definitely a team the Celtics can beat. We could be looking at 3 trap games or 3 games to set us right on the winning ways after losing to Oklahoma City on Sunday. Brandon, what's your thoughts on the road ahead?
Trap games, like you said. I think the Celtics that going into those games, those are games, especially against the Bobcats and Raptors, that they should easily win. But this team all season long never does what you expect them to do, whether that be go in and beat a team like the Miami Heat, Indiana Pacers, Oklahoma City Thunder, teams like that, or going in and playing a team like the Raptors and losing by 10 points, or playing the Sacramento Kings and losing by 12 points. So the key for this team moving forward, especially against teams like Charlotte and Toronto, is just to go into it like any other opponent, like Miami Heat, any good team like that, because they need every win, and those are easy wins that if the Celtics play their style of basketball, they should easily be able to win those games.
Scotty, what are you looking at for the road ahead?
Obviously you could say call them trap games, but I think this team is smarter than that now. I think now that they've seen the struggles they've had this season, especially knowing that they have very little room for error with the injuries and how essentially everything they're going to have to do is, they're going to have to fight, scratch a claw. I'll still say 3-0 because I'm a homer, but honestly it is the Bobcats and the Raptors, so it's not an unrealistic prediction, but I'd like to say that I can honestly say, looking at the schedule ahead and looking at other people's schedules, I wouldn't be shocked to see us end up going on a good enough streak here. Possibly if we end up, 14-5 for the rest of the way or whatever it is. Same thing we've been without since Rondo's been out. I wouldn't be shocked to see us end up coming back and winning the Atlantic Division and getting into that third spot.
I'm with you.
And you look at the Knicks, we play them twice, so that's going to, kind of add a half a game to each thing here in the standings because of the head-to-head. The Knicks don't have an easy schedule down the stretch, not to mention they lost to Myers Stoudemire. Carmelo Anthony's been dealing with a nagging injury, and their three-point shots just aren't dropping the way they were the first month of the season, which is what I told everybody would happen. So, I think I can see the Knicks kind of falling back to where they belong, which is underneath us. I'm not sold on Brooklyn being a legitimate team to worry about ahead of us. I can see us surpassing them. And I can really see us, if everything falls right for us, getting into that 3 slot, playing a team like Atlanta or Chicago in the first round, and then being able to avoid, I don't call it avoid, but, let Miami fight it out with the 4 seed in the second round, and then we, end up getting a rematch in the Eastern Conference Finals, which is probably what every Celtics fan wants. I'm pretty sure if you made the Celtics take the truth serum, that's what they would want. They'd want the rematch with Miami. So, but it's definitely within reach. But either way, I don't see this team falling back to the 8th seed. I don't see him. I see 6th seed at worst, 3rd seed at best.
Interesting. And I don't think it's unrealistic. I do think it's probably unrealistic for the Celtics to beat Miami, especially with the season they put together. But I really don't find it unrealistic that the Celtics can climb up the standings. As far as you're saying they could go, Scotty, I mean, I have no respect and I have no fear and very little respect for teams like New York and Brooklyn, though of course Indiana concerns me slightly. I really believe if Boston can continue on this trend of really just giving it a solid effort, they're going to win 2 out of 3 games all day long. So hopefully the Celtics can continue to pull it together, and we're on a good string here. Scotty, we're going to wrap the show. We're glad you called in, man. We miss you, and hopefully you're going to be returning to the post-game shows as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Trust me, I'm definitely looking forward to get back on the air. And remember, make buzz after you get off the show here.
I will
talk to you about some other stuff. But again, thanks to everybody for all your support. It was good talking to Tim again, and I appreciate you guys letting me on.
Scotty, thanks so much. That's the Scotsman, Mike Munger. He's a personality on CLNS Radio's post-game shows. He's hosted various shows throughout the network. He's family. He's friend. He's the Scotsman. He's a whack job. That's why we love him. B. Paul, we're nuts too, so I guess, that's our cue to get the hell out of here. What do you think?
It is definitely a great show tonight. Big thanks to Tim Donaghy for taking the time out to join us for pretty much the entire show and taking all the callers. Appreciate all the callers. Really some good questions tonight and a lot of good topics discussed. So if you're just tuning in or you didn't get to catch the whole show, be sure to check out clnsradio.com. You can find the on-demand show there. You can also find it on iTunes by searching CLNS Radio.
I guess that's it, man. I mean, I'd like to get out there one time for our listeners, friends of the network, to go over to youtube.com/CLNS Radio and subscribe to our YouTube page for raw footage in high definition from the Celtics locker room. These are interviews in their entirety, not the silly clips they give you on ESPN. They're not 30 seconds. No, they're about anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. So interviews with the players and coaches in their entirety from our locker room crew at CLNS Radio and Celtics blog. B. Paul, that's it. Episode 100 and whatever is a wrap. And 3 weeks in a row, Brandon. Soon we're going to get a medal.
That's right. 3 weeks in a row, and hopefully we'll make it 4 next week. We got some stuff in the works, so really looking forward to get back on.
That's it. Good night, folks. Go Celtics.